They might go on this. Yeah, they're going on this. I'm gonna die.
I'm really strong, dude.
You can kill him. You can kill.
I got slowed.
You guys get turret. You guys get turret. You guys get turret. You're diving. You're diving. It's bad. Get out.
Turret.
You're still on turret. Finish it.
Oh my god, I'm dead.
No, you're good. You're good.
Wow.
You get this. You get this.
Welcome back to week 5 of the North American LCS. And before we get to our next match between Velocity and Dignitas, I'd like to welcome Cloud9 Balls to the desk. Dude, congratulations on a win. Your team goes 11-2. Let's start right back at the beginning. Picks and bans. First 3 picks were super comfort picks, and then you guys win Ashe and Zyra.
Yeah, in all our scrims, we've been practicing Ashe and Zyra, and she has like really good initiate, so it pretty much fixes our problem on going on the enemy team. And yeah, we're just trying that out.
And even the Rumble pick in the bottom lane there, you guys are undefeated when you specifically get Rumble this season. What makes you like that champion so much?
I don't know, it has everything that I want. I can go really aggressive in lane, and even if I lose my lane, like I start feeding, I'm still useful because of my ult. So it's like a win-win for me. If I lose my lane, I'm still useful. If I win my lane, then it just gets easier.
And against COG, since those guys were the first to beat you this LCS season, and because they play such a late game style all the time, is there anything you do differently when approaching this game as opposed to a different LCS team?
Yeah, we just Doublelift is carrying so hard with Church, and going to late game, it helps him so much because he gets all the solo farm, so we can't really do anything about that. And yeah, we just pick Ashe now, Ashe Zyra, so much CC, and we can initiate and force stuff easier. We just want to end it like as fast as possible.
It worked into your favor. In the mid game, you know, it felt as though things slowed down a little bit for you guys. You had that sort of failed dive in the mid lane where you dove onto Big Fat LP, couldn't make the kill stick. Was it a call in the team that you needed to slow it down, farm up a little bit, or talk us through what happened after that little mishap?
All right, we wanted to arrow them, but arrowing Jarvan was just not that great compared to Ari because he just EQs out when I ulted. And I think High on Jace stepped on a trap, and then it just started falling apart because they counter-initiated on us. So we had to take it slow. We had to wait for our flashes and farm it up because they got free dragon after that. So yeah, we just had to take it slow and started pushing the bottom turret, waiting for arrow first.
So basically just waiting for your cooldowns to be available.
Yeah.
Now, once you guys did get the position, you weren't afraid to tower dive even with that type of composition. Do you think that the comp that CLG was running maybe, wasn't the best against you guys? Ari, Jov, and Shen?
It was kind of weird. I wasn't really expecting that, but
it worked in your favor, I suppose.
Yeah, just having Jace poking them.
Yeah. That's kind of all you guys did once you got points. Once you were ahead, you hit them with Jace, Ashe again and again until they'd initiate on you, and then you'd counter with the fight. And even though you said you're playing slow for Cloud9 is like a 31-minute game in this time. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about your champion pool in particular, because you're someone who competitively has played every position. Why are you top lane now?
I was on Meat Playground before this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing AD carry. But after the LCS qualifier, we disbanded. And I wasn't really going to do anything, but High and Turtle asked me to join as their top laner or try out. And there wasn't really any much spots left, so I just said okay, pretty much.
Well, it definitely seems to be working in your favor. You're having a fantastic split so far. Have you approached, playing in the top lane differently to the other positions that you've been doing in the past? Like, did you have to train a lot for this? Do you have to learn a whole bunch of new things?
It was basically just watching out for their jungler. That's the most important part, because when you're AD carry and support bot lane, you have wards, and you can go as much aggressiveness as you want. But top lane, sometimes you don't start wards, so you have to be careful about the jungler. And usually I just want to push my lane all the time and go aggressive. So just watch out for their junglers, pretty much.
And even speaking of junglers, your jungler Meteos is one of the best in all of North America. He definitely has the best stat line so far. In that game, I noticed Meteos had a lot more farm than Big Fat LP, but he always seemed to be there whenever he came around. How are you tracking Big Fat LP in the jungle?
I'm not sure if it was just really tracking. Is the way they play bot lane, like Shen was going really aggressive for some reason, and Jarvan blew my flash, so we knew since he couldn't gank mid because he tried, the only lane he ganked was bot lane because he wasn't close to top 2.
Well, you guys read the game really well. For the last question, you have one more matchup today against Vulcan, who also had a convincing win against TSM. Seeing the way they played, seeing the way you played, does that affect the game that you're going to be playing up later today?
I don't think so.
So you got your plan ready?
Mm.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
While we have a lot of fun bringing you all the NA LCS action every week, it does take a lot of hard work. And here's a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to create the North American League Championship Series.
So the week starts with the Monday morning meeting where we all come in
and we all meet to talk about kind of what happened the week before and what's going to happen this week. We go over story points that we want to hit, we go over features that we're going to do, and we basically have a rough outline of what our show is going to be like this week.
we come out of that with all our notes, and then it's time to start writing scripts, and that's where the show begins.
All right, once we have that outline from the Monday morning meeting, I've got to write the copy that fills it in.
And when we come in together on Tuesday, we kind of just like share ideas, hash it out, and then realize what's the actual stories that we do want to attack.
The casters are essential. I mean, they're the face of the program, and they are the experts. They know exactly what they want to say and how they want to say it, and it's just our job to help bring out the material from them.
I think a lot of it has to do is because they're not flashy when they win. Yeah. Like, they don't dominate people, they just take care of business.
It's one of my jobs to kind of get their voice in my head. So when I write the show, when I'm writing Riv's line, I've got to think like Riv, which is scary as hell.
Yeah!
Come game day, the studio fills up with all the rest of the production crew, and the staff triples, and it's just excitement and chaos and everything you'd expect to see in a working production studio on live show day. This week's a special week with 4th of July. We're starting Thursday only, and we're doing 8 matches, and we're starting early.
So that morning we do kind of our last notes pass and polish the script, and now it's got to be ready to go. And then we move down to the studio where we rehearse.
That's when we double check everything.
There's so much more than just talking into the monitor that goes into the show. A lot of the rehearsal is for tech, for camera shots, checking the players, running the assets and the slides that come up.
Got to go for 1 or 2 hours depending on how much we want to run through and how much tech needs to be practiced for that week as well, and then just go live.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Rolex, drift 12, and zoom in 12, ready 14, and flash,
Stand by
ready 13,
1.
and dissolve to 13. Cue up.
Welcome to week 4 of the North American LCS Summer Split. I'm Rivington Bisland III, along with Joshua Jat Leesman.
And then once the games start, the games always carry it. The players put on such good shows, it is not hard to be excited when the games are this amazing.
Cloud9 are crushing this fight right now.
It looks like it may be a clean ace on this one.
5-4-0. Vulcan takes the win. And I think a lot of that actually has to do because they're not flashy in their wins. They just take care of business, kill the Nexus.
And that does it here for week 4 of the North American LCS. So for myself, Kobe, Riv, Jat, and the entire live broadcast crew, GG, thanks for watching. And for those who celebrate it, happy 4th of July.
So many aspects and so many people doing things, and each person is a part of a giant puzzle, and if any piece was missing, the whole thing would fall apart.
There's just so many things, it's impossible to even name them all. But all the little things that come together make you go, wow, this show is really amazing.
And now it's time for our third match of the day, Velocity Esports versus Team Dignitas. Coming into this game, both teams are looking to rebound from a tough week 4 where they went 0-2. And for Velocity, that means a change in their mid lane.
Yeah, Vile Rose is out this week, and Echo, formerly of Team Martin, will be in. And this will be very interesting for them because Vile Rose has been the vocal leader of that team and makes most of the strategy calls in-game. And Echo, on the other hand, despite having those large yells when the team did something well for Martin, is generally a quiet player. So even though this is a temporary thing, we've seen in the past where good performances from subs can lead to permanent situations.
Yeah, and it's something we've seen in the EU a lot. You know, roster changes aren't necessarily a recipe for success. 5 out of the 8 teams have modified their rosters, and we've seen mixed results, to say the least. So let's see how Echo performs with Velocity today against Dignitas.
And Dignitas had a rough week last week as well. They performed well early in both of their matches, but in a trend that's continued since the middle of the spring split, they weren't necessarily decisive in closing out their wins. wins. They were able to slow down Cloud9's hyper-aggressive play, but they didn't give Cloud9 their first tower till 18 minutes in the game. And they were up on kills in Vulcan, but they couldn't capitalize on either of those things. And now they're sitting in 4th place with a 6-6 record.
And today, Skara and crew will try to dig themselves out of their slump and try to add another win against Velocity, a team they have already beaten twice this split.
And Skara went off in both matches as Kazakhs in Week 1 and as Zed down at MLG. So far, Velocity hasn't been able to stop Skara. In fact, in the 2 games Skara has played against Velocity, he has more kills than the entire Velocity team. And no one on Velocity has had more kills than deaths in either of those games.
That's pretty scary.
It's not good. Yeah.
No,
and even though the stats don't like it, Velocity should have won their first meeting of the year. Dig had to fight Velocity out of their base, if we remember. And they were just one team fight away from losing to Velocity.
Yeah, today, Evaniscus and Velocity will bring the fight out to try and land a knockout blow against Dignitas and their very experienced AD carry, Cutie Pie.
Cutie Pie knows how to adapt to most situations because all the experience he has, where a really inexperienced AD carry would get caught out a lot by really dumb things.
It's good to see the LCS players spreading the love.
Yeah, it's not often you see an enemy support compliment the other team's AD carry. They're always like, he's trash.
He looked a little intimidated by Cutie Pie. So, I mean, there's 0-2 against them, so makes sense. So, on the blue side, let's take a look at Velocity's lineup. In the top lane, it is going to be Chris, NK Inc. in the jungle, Echo in the mid lane in place of Vile Rose, Maple Street as AD carry, and Evaniscus on support.
And in the red corner, we have Dignitas with Kiwi Kid in the top lane, Crumbs in the jungle. Skara tweeted about his new haircut in the mid lane. I'm a Cutie Pie and AD carry, and Patoy on support.
So is the hair the source of his power?
It's going to turn their season around.
Well,
he had to get rid of all that bad luck.
So we'll see how well this pans out. We will be jumping into Champion Select very, very shortly. What are we expecting as priority bans, with the exceptions of the obvious ones? Chase, Elise.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad Scar only had those 2 games on Master Yi at MLG, but I don't think that's going to be considered in this matchup. I think since Dignitas is on the red side of the map, definitely right here, they're going to be trying to take out anything Chris could try to pull at them. The thing is, they don't know that much about Echo aside from last split. So Echo, for instance, plays a lot of Anivia, Orianna, Ahri. It will be very key if Dignitas bans out Echo rather than banning out the rest of Velocity. If not, they'd go for Maple Street.
And as is customary, we'll probably see Skara drawing a number of bans, as we've been seeing throughout the entirety of, well, ever.
Exactly. You're going to ban out Scar's Diana.
Yeah.
Maybe his Zed, because that was dominating against Velocity in one of their previous matchups. I don't think we'd see a Kazakhs ban because he's been changed a lot since that time, but he's definitely the focal point when people try to ban out Dignitas.
So we are into picks and bans. Velocity Esports this time will be on the blue side. First pick versus ban, Dignitas in the red, and immediately taking Zac away. They don't want the secret weapon in the hands of Dignitas.
No, they don't want Crumbs diving in and starting those team fights, but to me, Crumbs will just fall back on one of his many junglers. He had a bit of a Zinzao thing last week that didn't work out for him, but I'd expect him to go back to something more like Nasus because he's actually had a lot of success on that champion.
In terms of the rest of the bans, nothing surprising yet. Nunu, once again, has been removed. That's 3 for 3 today. We do see that Diana's been taken away from Scar, probably his strongest champion, and an Evelyn taken out from Dig, actually.
Exactly. That Eve is for NK Inc., who is very good on Jungle Eve, and it actually was one of the big ways Velocity was able to make that great comeback win against Curse in Week 3 at MLG. So Dignitas just trying to get all the possible things Velocity does out of the way. And Twisted Fate is one of the Echo things they didn't decide to ban whatsoever.
Interestingly, they've prioritized Twisted Fate over Jace. He's available for selection, the Zed and Elise with the final 2 bans, and we've seen first pick Jace from both of our previous games.
Yeah.
Dig thinking about it, maybe?
And the first pick Jace had a huge impact on the victors of those games as well, especially for that Cloud9 game, how they're able to siege COG out of the turret. I kind of expect COG to go for this unless they don't think or trust NK Inc.'s ability to play Jace and say, we can save it for later, but I feel like you just pick it now.
Yeah, I definitely think this is something that Dignitas will be considering and measuring up. We've also seen Shen in both of our previous games as well, and it's a champion I know we've been talking about extensively during the course of the last week, and how he's he's in a good position, but he's not necessarily the insta-pick material that he once was.
Yeah, he's one of those guys you can try to pick late. You can pick things against him that are very good, like Cloud9 out-pushing the Shen in that last game against COG. He's a thing teams are allowed to go with, but don't have to anymore.
Interestingly, right now,
no Jace.
No Jace. Yeah. And I don't know if this is... I don't know. This is something to me that would you put TF in the middle, Jace up top. Jace, this is weird.
Dignitas didn't think Chris was going to play Jace.
And
I think that's what it comes down to. It's not that they don't have faith in the champion. They're just saying they're not going to opt into that game. Dignitas is going to play whatever they want. They don't need to get sucked into the power game, Jace, necessarily, if a team doesn't play it.
We do see those just hovering over Annie and Zinzao. What we will do, let's
Look
talk
at the
about...
smile on Cutie Pie's face for that one. He's like, come on, guys, let's do it.
Let's talk about Velocity for a second. You've got Twisted Fate, we've got Shen, we've got Thresh. So potentially our top laner and jungler left to be locked in, or AD carry and top laner, as it were. What are we thinking from Velocity with the exception of that very global reach they've got already?
It really depends on what Dignitas decides to run as their AD carry, how aggressive Velocity tries to go. Draven's still up. Draven's probably the pick for Maple Street if Dignitas doesn't take it away right here, as Cutie Pie's probably, he's saying all the different things he'd like to play bottom lane with Bator right now, and every single one is getting turned down.
And he does decide to lock in that Graves at the end of the day. So Cutie Pie and Maple Street, both Draven players, both well known for their Draven, deciding to go against it. We've got at least the duo lane as well as our mid laner there for Dignitas, although Kiwi Kid may run cannon.
Yeah, Kiwi Kid and Scar swap all the time. Twisted Fate is actually Kiwi Kid's champion. He's played it 4 times. Scar hasn't played Twisted Fate yet this split. So Velocity still just trying to pick their stuff. The jungle would be very key in this. They could actually bring out their push-poke strategy right now if they wanted to. They could actually do Janna and Ezreal if they wanted to, but I don't think they're going to go for that, unfortunately. Makes me
I absolutely love the fact that they have tried it. It's a brilliant strategy, and I think maybe they're toying with it. Maybe they were thinking about it themselves, but it would be a risky decision to make.
Against a Graves, it's a little shaky because Graves' wave clear is really high, but Kennen wouldn't have been able to do it, and they decide to not go with that strategy. Very, very surprising, too, how Maple Street didn't go with Draven.
So they've got a very beefy front line from Velocity Esports. We see the Tristana locked in for that very, very late game, and, you know, we heard Balls talking about just how powerful Double Lift is on Tristana, and they actually banned it out against him. So maybe trying to channel some of that inner late game awesomeness.
And if Velocity thinks back to the games that they've won, Maple Street has went off in all of them. So put that guy on your hyper carry, channel some CLG, and try to get it going that way. Might be the mindset Velocity has here.
What we do see with that Renekton locked in, we know that is going to be a jungle Shen. So we've got all of that utility coming from the jungle. We've got the gank presence coming from Twisted Fate in the mid lane. And that's very scary kill lanes anywhere they go. When comboed with the Thresh, when comboed with the Renekton up top.
They have a lot of potent lane combinations. It's just that Tristana will have to get rescued by a little bit of anything. And Dignitas is having a lot of fun today with how they're swapping around picks. They're embracing the randomness that's kind of happened. So, huzzah, no Jace in picks or bans in this game, but Dignitas still going with stuff that they look comfortable with.
This is a bit of a rarity. I don't think it's the first time in the LCS. I distinctly remember a game in Moscow where we went through picks and bans without a Jace featuring as well. That's over in the EU, but
yeah.
It's definitely one it's an oddity with the current power of that champion that nobody felt it was worth picking right now.
Neither of these teams specializes in it, and I like it when teams actually go against the curve in that sense.
Play
and
what
say,
they're stronger on.
Yeah, if I'm not good at that champion, we're not going to unlock what he's doing. And instead, now Dignitas going with the Ryze Kennen thing. There's a very good chance they're swapping lanes like crazy in this one because we see Ryze top, we see Kennen top. We may as well see I'm a Cutie Pie and Patoy mid in this one.
It's a very scary team fight combo from Dignitas. Once you start adding the Ryze, the Kennen, the Nocturne all together, plus the burst damage from Graves, they should be able to put out a lot of hurt very quickly.
And it's going to be a lot on Crumbs to try and make some big plays because I haven't really mentioned the difference between a jungle Shen and a jungle Nocturne. Jungle Shen is a very supportive jungler. He sits in the jungle for the most part until level 6, then ganks with his ultimate or just counter ganks. He can pull off a few gimmicks early on, but it is at a heavy cost to his jungle speed, so NK has to be very smart and safe about where he goes.
And in terms of the two junglers, you've got one that is very proactive. The moment that level 6 lands for Nocturne, he's going to throw himself into a team fight, and you can use that Stand United offensively, as you were saying, but it's not the most ideal
It's a reactive jungle spell.
Correct. So we'll see how that pans out. We are in the loading screen for, of course, Velocity taking on Dignitas. This is the third game of the day. On the blue side, Velocity, this will be the third time they're playing against Dignitas. Second time.
Third?
It is third time. Yes, third time.
Third.
They've lost twice before. And Dignitas, of course, on the red side, looking to go 3-0 the split. Right now, though, we do see the two teams starting off. We've seen very passive starts from both of the previous games, albeit both teams have all four teams have sort of invaded to get very deep early vision.
And I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw something similar this game as well. Thresh is always the threat at level 1 for these teams. His hook is almost undodgeable, and Crumbs found them right there because he could see his Duskbringer path after he threw it in on Velocity and saw where they decided to move afterwards. So he knows there were Velocity people in that brush, and he checks them again.
Yeah, he's playing with fire at the moment, though. He is sitting alone in the river. If Velocity did land any form of CC, Crumbs may be in trouble, and he is going to keep himself patient. Right now, defensive starts from both teams. No one actually invading or getting any form of vision in their opponent's jungle.
No shallow wards for both teams, so very conservative plays early, and Crumbs sees a lot of people. He's got to get out of there.
Yeah, he realized that you could actually see from the positioning of Echo, they were toying with the idea of making an aggressive play, but it didn't work out for them. 1 minute 20 on the clock. This is the go sign for Velocity. They gear up the speed, and they start moving towards their enemy blue buff.
And Dignitas has wards directly where Velocity would be going, so they'll know if Velocity sticks around or not here, and it makes Crumbs' decision a little bit more crucial. They see Velocity peels out. Crumbs is going to go back where they saw the ward, and now they have to worry about potential smite steals. But I don't think they're really going to lose much other than knowledge of where Crumbs started.
Yeah, at this point in time, you actually see the entirety of Velocity backing away. That was a fairly risky play, all 5 of them sticking together to get a ward on something that they're not even looking like they're going to challenge right now.
The only thing this gives them is knowledge in the lane of exactly where Crumbs started. But at the same time, just with how late they pulled back their invade, Dignitas knows that Shen started at red buff as well, even if Dignitas doesn't have the ward coverage in that area.
So we'll see who can make use of that information better. They're both fully aware of it, and we're also going to see a straight lane matchup. This is the first of the day as well, with both dual lanes going head-to-head from the get-go.
We've been seeing it actually a fair bit today, because especially the first game as well had it with the Jin Zhao. Sure, it wasn't an AD carry
they
going
went top
heads
lane,
up,
they went top lane.
but it was definitely a matchup and a battle.
Matchup and a battle indeed. Chris Renekton in that top lane, he's facing off against Kennen, and it's definitely a matchup that is going to be a little difficult for him. The melee of Renekton at these early levels, he's susceptible to so much harass and free poke.
He's got to be real careful, and I wonder if NKink's going to be able to make a gank come up top. Because the junglers started on the same side of the jungle, they could potentially meet in top lane if Chris wants to make an aggressive play, or if Kiwi Kid starts bullying him.
Well, we do see Kiwi Kid, he's not actually spending too much time focusing in this mid lane, however. It was, of course, Twisted Fate taking on Ryze, and Ryze going to have a little bit of difficulty in these early stages. Not the best at farming. We do see Crumbs showing his face in this top lane.
And no Shen to counter, so it's really just Crumbs trying to assist a bit. Not going to burn anything, but maybe more. Wow, they changed some CC.
The stun lands, the fear throws him backwards. Ignite is up, one last auto attack. That's going to be enough. First blood in conjunction with the red buff, and that was something neither of us were expecting.
That CC change surprised Chris a huge amount because he was waiting to slice or dice away and still had his flash. If Chris wanted to flash out of that, he could have, but he got greedy trying to save his cooldown, and because Kiwi Kid and Crumbs chained the stun with the fear, they were able to pick up a surprising kill.
Yeah, and that fear as well, just throwing them off to the side 90 degrees, managing to keep him in place long enough for that last auto attack of Kiwi Kid to throw down and get the damage out. Scar and Echo trading a bit of damage in this mid lane. They're staying even on CS, but with that first blood picked up on Nocturne, it's definitely a help.
Oh, Evaniscus lands a hook on Cutie Pie and tries to make something happen, but Tristana's level 3 was not willing to dive in.
Now they do trade ignites on one another, both Sona and Thresh, burning those abilities, but the difference is it's Maple Street with the HP, whereas on the other side, it's Patoy with the HP.
And there's no exhaust in that lane. Very frequently, you'll see the supports bring exhaust instead of ignite, so they got a little bit over-aggressive there, and it could lead to some more action in that bottom lane.
There's no exhaust in this entire game. If we look down the summoner spells of both teams, 2 ignites, 2 barriers apiece. So very interesting to see that, especially when you're coming up against a Tristana and a Renekton, who could be very effective against.
There's a couple things that exhaust is quite potent against, but for these guys, they're just going for the lane kills, and they don't necessarily see that big of a melee hypercarry threat. But if I have a Nocturne diving in, I'm going to want an exhaust. They decided for the kill in lane because they want to get Maple Street farm.
So we'll see how well this pans out for them. The first one to recall in this bottom lane was I'm a Cutie Pie, because of course he did take all of that damage from the bottom lane. He's returned with a long sword, a couple of pots, and he's falling a little bit of CS behind, but he's got a massive wave to play with.
And we have to remember, Velocity had access to those double golems at the start of the game, and that's giving them a bit of an XP advantage. I think they took the double golems. I could be wrong on that. I was kind of paying attention to other things, but that's one of the reasons you don't see people match straight up against each other in these bottom lanes that frequently.
So I'm just going to see if if that experience of those levels play into their favor. At the very least, with that earlier CS advantage, Maple Street's actually coming back with some sustain, which is sorely needed. He's got no regeneration, because Thresh, other than blocking damage, isn't going to give him HP back like Patoy Sona will.
Got to be able to withstand some of that Patoy poke, but the thing that Chris has to deal with now is this lane against Kiwi Kid. He knows he's still got his flash up, but he's just so far behind after giving up that kill, all defensive items, whereas Kiwi Kid's been able to go double offensive. Chris can't necessarily get close to minions.
It's one of the things that'll play, or one of the things that will play into Chris's favor a little bit later is as he does get some more levels and some more farm, maybe working towards a Hex Drinker, which would work fantastically against Ryze and Kennen. It'll help him, but the question is, how well can Kiwi Kid keep him under control?
I think the Hex Drinker is definitely something that's happening, but here in the mid lane, Scar finally fighting back a little bit on Echo. The way that mid lane matchup plays out is TF tries to shove Ryze, and then Ryze tries to kill TF. And finally, Scar almost tried to kill TF, and it keeps the farm even.
And you have to give props to Scar right now, because he's not losing out on any of the CS. He's been sitting at his tower for the majority of this matchup, and even on that previous engagement, he's actually got a CS advantage.
I think something that happened as well is when Echo was shoving up, he got scared of Crumbs, because they didn't have the most prolific ward coverage around their rivers, and he couldn't stay too far up to CS, so as he was shoving, Echo was missing a few, and Scar was getting them back at the turret.
Very importantly, we've just seen a flash of Crumbs. He is level 6 right now, whereas NK Inc. is still only level 5, but he is on the double golem, so we will most likely see that Stand United available very soon. He's about a third of the way through the level, so there's this very small window of opportunity if Crumbs is able to pick a fight.
Crumbs goes for Echo. He can Spell Shield that card, does not.
Unfortunately, Spell Shield doesn't even get procced. That Shroud of Darkness not available as Chris gets locked up by the little hamster.
Yeah, Kiwi Kid's going to continue to do this to Chris because he knows that first kill assist is just giving him the lead and edge in that lane, double his score in minions right now.
That is a massive advantage right now. The one thing that does help Chris out a little bit is that Wave is now up against his tower, so if he's able to successfully freeze it, he should be able to pick up some additional CS and start to close that gap, assuming Kiwi Kid lets him, because he's going to be able to attack him from range a little bit north of that tower.
I think that's one of the reasons Kiwi Kid's up 55 or 56 to 26 is because he's denying so well at the turret, just with really smart auto attacks. But this whole game is still trending Dignitas's way. We look at all the lanes individually, and Maple Street's the only one really doing what he should be doing, or doing better than he should be doing, because Tristana's level 5 is not as good as Graves level 5, and he's still up in minions.
Yeah, especially when you think about the laning phase of a Thresh Tristana lane against a Graves Sona. You've got a passive support in Sona and the aggressive support in Thresh, but Evaniscus' hooks haven't really been as impactful as they maybe wanted.
There was the one he landed early at the turret, which burned both ignites, and then since then, he's mainly using it as a deterrent for Dignitas to not get close.
In terms of CS, I'mACutiePie has now hit level 6, 67 CS on the board, and when you do get a Graves to level 6, the burst combo of a potential crescendo buckshot collateral damage is very, very scary.
And we could see a lot of action happening very shortly.
Paranoia's down, they've dived onto Chris. Duskbringer is up as well, he's going to continue the chase. Stand United gets put on top of him, 200 HP. Shen will arrive, that's a double taunt, but it's not quick enough to save Chris. The Crocodile's been turned into a pair of shoes. They do trade kills back and forth, 1-for-1 though.
And that was just all the globals getting used at once. That's why I was saying we were going to see some action. It just happened before I was ready to finish explaining it, because as soon as Crumbs went up there, you recognized that NK Inc. was going to match his Stand United as planned in Champ Select, and then because the fight was going to be long, since it's a bunch of tanks fighting up there, Echo would come in as well. It works out in a 1-for-1, but because it was a 3 versus 2 fight, Dignitas wins that exchange.
So in terms of this, the minutes that are now playing out, Dignitas have got this window of opportunity. There's no Destiny available. There's no Stand United available. They're playing very aggressive in this mid lane.
And this is the price that Echo has to pay for going to get that kill in the top lane. They trade top for mid turret, but that trade is still better for Dignitas because you get more for a mid turret than a top one. They want a crescendo.
In the bottom lane, that's a flash crescendo. It locks up Evaniscus. Buckshot is there. One more auto attack. It's actually stolen away from Patoy. Maple Street rocket jumps forwards. Here comes Skara. A flash from Maple Street. Room Prison is down. Overload goes up. Barriers popped. One more overload. CutiePie is looking for it. And the smoke screen manages to pick that one up. He gets away with his life. And well played, CutiePie.
He got some style points for that one, finishing with essentially utility vision skill and walking away with that. You knew that Patoy was going to be flying in there for the crescendo, and Maple Street really tried for the kill. But because Velocity had lost control of that middle turret, they could not track Scarra's movements, and that's why it turned into a bad situation for Velocity.
So well played by them. Scarra doing well to roam, being able to at least counter some of the global pressure by simply walking to the lane. And if you can keep that up, thanks to those towers going down, or thanks to positional play, it will keep them in this driving seat. They've got 1,500 gold advantage right now. Things are looking pretty good for Dignitas. It's a slower lead, but it's one that they definitely have.
I think things are actually looking better than the gold lead would tell us. Only because Scarra on Rise, if he has a good early mid game, usually takes over games. I remember playing a lot of Rise with him, and if he ever got going, you just win. His Rise is actually incredibly potent in team fights, and he's getting there right now.
So one of the things that I've just noticed, which is very interesting as far as itemization is concerned, Echo has picked himself up a Boots of Swiftness as his first one, which is a bit strange.
That's an old school TF item. Back when TF would always rush Lich's Bane, you move a little bit faster on ganks and allows you to get some more, essentially, range on your gold card when you're ganking, if you think of it that way. Very old school build, and he's actually using that to try to stay out of range of Scarra on Rise because he knows he can't trade him straight up.
It's one thing that he's going to try rely on his teammates then, because he's foregoing some of that damage. Right now, Dignitas, they've grouped up. They have the mid tower down. They've got a numbers advantage, and this is going to be a dragon for them.
NK might try to go and steal this, but his smite's down, so even with the ward, it's just prolonged conclusion. This is another one of these things for Dignitas that I think they just took because they'd set up the advantages previously with the mid turret being down, with the couple kills Amacutie and Patoy had picked up, without even having to burn summoner spells in Amacutie or Scarra, and they just knew they could go get that dragon.
So picked it up for free. They've got their opponents have got a fair amount of vision on their side of the jungle. If you look at all of those wards, the Tribush is warded, the opposite of the Red Bush. You can see Velocity are a little bit scared of being invaded because they don't have that vision or that control of the middle of the map.
And we got to remember, the bottom lane gank that killed Maple Street came through that litter of wards, saying, yeah, we got to worry about Scar roaming down this way because the mid turret's gone. They can't control Scar's roam, so they're having to ward against it, which is costing them a lot of money.
In terms of itemization, a couple of big items have been picked up. Spirit of the Ancient Golden there for Nocturne, and a Bloodthirster already completed for Cutie Pie. So he's going to start stacking that up and getting his burst combo as high as possible.
And Cutie Pie plays more Graves than almost anyone in the LCS, so he knows that that Bloodthirster is what you do on Graves. Graves has so many attack damage ratios on his spells that oftentimes Bloodthirster just makes him fly off in the mid game and just go crazy, which is specifically when Maple Street will be weakest on Tristana. So really trying to abuse a lull in Maple Street's power curve here, Amacutie Pie is doing with that Bloodthirster Graves.
You just noticed Kiwi Kid putting a very good ward there on the blue buff, so trying to set up at least the opportunity for steal. The globals are now available again for Velocity. Death Sentence goes out, and Cutie Pie
trying to bait for Nocturne.
Gently sidesteps it. Paranoia is there in the background. Maple Street and Evaniscus, they're not taking the bait this time.
Amacutie Pie might have been better served not sidestepping that Death Sentence, because that would have at least pulled Evaniscus in and made it so he couldn't Lantern Maple Street out. But Crumb's not done yet. He's still looking for something, but walking through ward.
So he's been visioned up. If he does decide to dive in, it's a quick one. There's Paranoia. Crescendo is down. Stand United is being channeled. It's not going to be enough time for Shen to join the party. He's going to walk to the lane. A kill picked up. That's the second of the game for Patoy.
So clever. Patoy got hit by the hook that time, and that's what pulled Velocity in for the fight.
Crumbs gets taunted up. He's taking some turret damage. He's going to be able to get away. Cutie Pie's thinking about picking an engagement, but he doesn't have his collateral damage, and Scarra was a little too late to join that party.
Yeah, this time when he ran down, Velocity recognized he was coming, but Velocity needs to get some turrets back for all this roam. In fact, Echo's going top, trying to get Kiwi Kid.
And Kiwi Kid with a very good flash. Now we do see the Twin Ghost is out. There's the slow down. Slicing Maelstrom is up. Kiwi Kid is the first to get stunned. He manages to stun Echo in reply. Lightning Rush should be up relatively soon. Another gold card lands. That's going to be enough. The slice and dice into Cole the Meek, and Chris picks up a kill.
It's the speed TF coming in. Boots of Swiftness and the Twin Shadows. The only reason he was able to run down Kiwi Kid and get that kill. So they didn't get the pressure mid lane that they so sorely needed, but they did get a kill on the Kiwi Kid for Chris, which may be even more important.
Yeah, at this point in time, especially on a champion that's 35 CS behind his opponent, just trying to balance out some of those numbers. Dignitas realizing now that they have a power position, they try to invade the blue buff. Chris is going to trade some gentle love taps there with Scarra, and it does look like this blue is going to be stolen away. So a tower down, a blue buff down, and 3 kills down. Velocity are falling behind.
And the gold still looks okay. 3,000 gold at 15 minutes is a very surmountable lead. I want to see when Chris finishes up some of these items. He didn't go for the Hex Drinker. He's still looking to go for that Sunfire Cape. And considering he was down 55 to 25 in that lane, being down the same amount some 10 minutes later means Chris has been laning very well against Kiwi Kid after that early game disaster.
Yeah, so he's been able to at least mitigate that early game damage. The one thing that does, it is quite impressive for Dignitas at least, is they've got this gold advantage, even though their opponent has a Twisted Fate in their team. So the TF passive, not even being affected just yet, but the longer the game goes, the more impactful that, of course, will be.
Yeah, the more minions you get, the more gold you get from that 2 gold per hit for Twisted Fate. And Echo has done, even though he's 1-0-1, I have to say he's allowed Scar a lot more freedom than he necessarily needed to give him. The ganks that Echo's pulled off top lane have always opened up holes in Velocity's defense for Scar to go in and exploit. So maybe once again, since his turret is down, Echo's having a bit of trouble farming, and it's letting Dignitas roam around where they want.
And it's definitely just a matter of Dignitas dictating the pace right now. They're simply roaming and pushing anywhere and everywhere without really replying. I guess, you know, you can rely on Twisted Fate to be the proactive player and make a gank happen. But with that Shen and the way they've been using the Destiny and the Stand United, it's been very much reactionary up until this point.
Yeah, a lot of times it's where's Crumbs going? Okay, let's use both to try and counter him. Instead of Velocity dictating to Dignitas, making Crumbs use his paranoia to stop, and then still having something left to make a play with. That's how Velocity needs to, they have to get themselves in that position if they want to come back in this game.
So the cooldowns are available, and you know, with the fact that there are a couple towers down and Dignitas is sort of freely roaming around the map now, there's ample opportunity to actually make a Destiny play, come in behind Skara, you know, between him and his tower, get the Stand United down on top of you, and maybe try stick it to him if it's possible.
And Skara really is just stacking up that tier. There's no threat on him. 145 to 145. If we look at all the lanes aside from the top, these guys are farming very close to each other. I actually have to say NK Inc.'s 88 farm on Shen, not going for a Spirit Stone, any of that stuff, making it to the point where he could get a Sunfire Cape, is really just telling me he's trying to rush to the split push point in this match.
So he wants to try control the map. If you can control the map, you can dictate the pace. Chris has gone in 1v3. There's the Stand United. Shen is about to join the party. Destiny's now been used as well. Slicing Maelstrom is down. Chris is very, very low. Kiwi Kid dropping HP as well. Now we see the first person to back away from the fight. In actual fact, Kiwi Kid is the first to die. NK Inc. is now backing away. Zevaniscus is going to try to get one auto attack down. And Culver Meek will close it out. Chris securing himself a second kill of the game. He now has double buffs. A very good flame knocks Skara backwards, but Cutie Pie is joining the party. Collateral damage is down. The crescendo locks up NK Inc. Patoy's trying to pick that kill up in the top lane. Evaniscus has been dropped. Messy all over, and everyone died.
That was nuts for everyone involved. That's what Velocity had to do, though. They aggressively and proactively used their ultimates, and it made Crumbs use them in reaction to them. I feel like Velocity won that engagement because not only did they trade kills, they allowed Maple Street, the guy who generally has been relied upon to carry them, to get some farm in the bottom and take a turret.
So the problem is now that Dignitas hasn't stopped the pressure. They've still got two members bashing away on this inner turret. Echo's thinking about getting involved, and here comes NK Inc. from the side. Gold card is down. PewDiePie takes a lot of damage. The slow is out. NK Inc. is probably going to wait for the taunt. Locks him up. Gold card's down. This is going to be a fairly easy kill onto PewDiePie. Renekton actually closes out, and that is a pretty good pickup.
They got the double buffs back, and they might continue to chase it. They get oracles too. This is huge.
They stack the stuns one after the other. Flash comes out. Echo carries on chasing. Stack deck comes up, and Sona drops like a sack of potatoes.
Huge plays from Velocity all around. Yes, Dignitas will get the dragon off of that, but this is one of those situations where it's completely worth it because consider the oracles, 400 gold that Patoy spent, and the kill sprees that were ended on both of them. Absolutely great for Velocity.
In addition to defending the tower and getting the double buffs back, it's a great position to be in. Evaniscus and Chris, the front line there in that engagement, trying to land something onto Kiwi Kid. But unfortunately, that death sentence did go a little wide.
And having two Sunfire Capes here for Velocity will be key in prolonged team fights. If Velocity can get Shen and Renekton to not die to the initial burst from Dignitas, they're going to outlast Dig in some sustained cases for these team fights. Graves is all very up front in damage, so if Velocity can get the long fights, they'll be doing good.
In terms of magic resistance, though, they're still sorely lacking on the side of Velocity Esports. There's no Aegis inside, actually, for either team right now. And when you're coming up against a Ryze and a Cannon, it's definitely something you'd like to be investing in.
And one reason there's no Aegis is there's not big team fights going on. With all the globals flying around, we're seeing 2v2s and 3v3s and people coming in from different angles for late, long team fights. And the Sunfire Cape is honestly better if you're keeping the game in that pace.
So right now, the blue buff will be respawning. Remember, it was stolen last time by Dignitas, so this will be the second time that they've actually stolen this buff away. It does get picked up by Skara. It's up in the top lane. We've seen Chris He recalled from Kiwi Kid. The rest of Dignitas, they've now stacked up. They're just going to face tank this tower, secure their 4th tower of the game for absolutely 0 cost.
Going back and getting it. I feel like it cost him a whole lot beforehand where he lost the double buffs in the Oracles, but he got it back. He finished the turret, mission accomplished for Dignitas. But what they have to worry about is Maple Street getting too far into the late game, because I don't necessarily think that a Nocturne, even a Nocturne and a Kennen diving straight onto a Tristana will be enough if it gets to, say, that 40-minute mark, which is why I think Dignitas might be grouped up as 5 and trying to force the issue a little bit.
Yeah, the power of that Buster Shot cannot go unaccounted for. If that Nocturne dives in before Shen arrives, just Buster Shot him away. Assuming the spell shield has not been blown, that's going to be very crucial for Crumbs to actually stick to that little Yordle.
And the great thing for Maple Street is if he wanted to knock back Nocturne, he can break the spell shield himself. He can E him and then knock him back. The main thing he needs to knock back, though, is honestly the Kennen.
Just keep the damage away, keep that stun from going down. Cutie Pie picks up his red buff. He's going to have enough gold to complete that static shiv relatively soon, and just really increasing that burst damage on hit from the auto attack in conjunction with the rest of his abilities.
It's going to help Dignitas shove the lanes like they do so in most of their victories. Graves already clears fast. Static shiv Graves clear is almost trivial at that point for Dignitas as they try to keep velocity stuck in their base.
So in terms of the rest of the itemization right now, we do see Maple Street sitting on that red pod as well as a BF sword. Once that gets completed to the likes of an Infinity Edge or you know, just another big BF sword related item, he's going to hit a power curve. And we see Chris, he's stacking armor. He's prioritizing that of MR.
Yeah, he's hoping to get through the Kennen and the Rise and get onto I'm a Cutie Pie in fights. And I really want to see how Velocity makes this transition, because even though we give Dignitas a lot of flack for not necessarily finishing games, it's a bigger problem for Velocity. They've had really good opens to a lot of games this split and have very seldom been able to close. So even just being in this game against Dignitas, they got to make something work.
Evaniscus gets caught out, takes a lot of poke. That's a flash from Skara. Stand United comes out. Buster Shot knocks the damage away as they pull Patoy forward. Collateral damage comes down. That's the first kill of the engagement as they turn their attention over to NK Inc. Maple Street's doing the best he can. He should be able to pick up one. In actual fact, Chris will get the last hit there onto Kennen. Another slice and dice into Colin Meek will close that out. That is a 3-for-1 exchange. All started from Evaniscus being caught.
And that fight was too fast for Velocity. NK Inc. died early on because Chris and NK Inc. have to go in together. That channel actually needs to be used maybe in conjunction with Renekton. As soon as you use that on Evaniscus and they didn't go in together, it allowed Dignitas to just sustain through the fight, get the targets down one at a time, and really just not have a full team fight.
Yeah, something definitely didn't work out for them. Some relatively good counterplay from Evaniscus right at the end. He got the box down, he pulled Patoy in, but it simply wasn't enough. Baron has been secured now for Dignitas, first of the game, and now that gives them a really good power position right now.
And that Baron is so crucial for Dignitas, maybe giving them the confidence to just dive straight on top of turrets, specifically with Crumbs going tank Nocturne, leading the way on these charges might be exactly what they need, because Maple Street's not at the point yet where he's too dangerous to dive under a turret. Maybe that's exactly what Dignitas needs, because that last fight could not have been much better.
Yeah, that Zhonya's Hourglass cannot be, discounted either. It was so impactful. Kiwi Kid managing to survive Maple Street. That last auto attack, it forced Maple Street to turn away. He couldn't get a reset on his rocket jump. He couldn't, get more involved. And, even though Chris did get the kill at the end of the fight, just that extra delay, that extra couple of seconds you buy your team and your opponents when they're trying to focus you down, it can only work in your favor.
Really want to see with this Oracle's on Patoy whether or not Dignitas does decide to turret dive, or if they just keep doing their triple push, because to be fair, they haven't needed to force huge team fights to get here. They needed to pick off Velocity out of position, which is surprising considering Velocity's heavily global composition. It should kind of be the other way around, so maybe Dignitas will continue doing the same.
I think the Velocity are lacking the confidence to make these big plays stick, and the problem is now if they try to make a big play, try to make an aggressive moment, it's against a team with Baron, so it's even more difficult to actually get anything successful. Maple Street, however, has been farming very well. He's only 8 behind at the 27-minute mark, and when you're defending and reacting this much, that's pretty good.
And now there's the dive by Dig. They do not hesitate.
So Echo is forced to flash away. Kid gets knocked backwards. A buster shot has been used by Maple Street. There's a couple ultimates blown, but they do pick up the tower. Chris was thinking about getting involved, but simply couldn't close the range that he really needed to.
I'd still say that's mission kind of accomplished for Dignitas. They wanted to get more off of that, but a turret for no deaths is still very beneficial for them. That knockback that Maple Street put onto Kiwi Kid could be a sign for things to come, and it makes Dignitas think about what happens if this game is closer. How would they actually be able to initiate on? Because that one didn't work that great.
Yeah, completely got rid of them. It was a flash from Echo as well to get away from any of that CC, so a couple of ultimates blown and cooldowns on the side of Velocity, but they did relatively well to not lose anything more. The 2 previous blue buffs have been taken away by Dignitas, so they will be aware of the timing, but it looks like Velocity want to take this one.
Dignitas doesn't want to make an unnecessary error here that grants Velocity any kind of window, because we got to see here the Dignitas Baron has about 90 seconds left, so they still have one more play they're able to make. They couldn't make that play if one person died while trying to steal a blue buff.
In terms of the itemization as well, we see where Chris is going. He's trying to get towards that Randian zone and just trying to get that movement speed debuff onto his opponents. And you were talking about how important it is to get rid of Kiwi Kid. If Kiwi Kid, Crumbs, Scarry get in and amongst the front lines, just reduce their movement speed, allow the rest of Velocity to back away at a slightly quicker pace.
Chris and NK Inc. have to stick together here. They need to make Kiwi Kid and Scar feel like they don't matter, and they need to just dive through to I'mACutiePie. They have a strong tank line that can actually put enough threat down onto I'mACutiePie to kill him, which is rare actually in today's League of Legends game. Mainly we see these long range like double AP comps that try to burst people down. This is persistent frontline threat that can protect Maple Street if they get the right kind of team fights.
So another tower goes down. Velocity are pretty much resigning themselves to the steps of their inhibitors. Another death sentence goes up from Evaniscus, and he simply hasn't been able to catch the right target really at all during the course of this matchup.
Hasn't been able to sneak through the minions, and so much of that is just the skirmishing. Plus, they got into Evaniscus' head with all those Nocturne ganks. It's like, is this hook something I really want to land? Oh wait, that just meant there's a Nocturne there. That's why I can hit them. And he's second-guessing himself on these thresh hooks.
So right now, 6 towers to 3. Dignitas are now invading. They took the previous Dragon. They've got very good deep wards on the side of Velocity's jungle. Pretty much if Velocity leaves their base, Dignitas are going to be able to see that very clearly.
And it's because they've been pushed up for so long. They're just making sure they can keep control. Dignitas didn't get a huge amount done with the second half of their Baron buff, but if you take in the cumulative amount of things they got a lot of outer turrets, not there's a word for that, inner turrets, I'm going to say. Not the inhibitor turrets, but they've gotten the full cycle of 6 down, gives them a 3 turret edge on Velocity. It's solidified their map control, and it means Dignitas now has a stranglehold over the next Baron contention.
Yeah, so League of Legends by the numbers. Get the lanes in your favor, get the vision down, and then basically wait for your opponents to be out of position and make the plays. It's something that Dignitas have actually done very well on all 3 inner towers. They basically forced themselves into their position without any response or reply from Velocity.
And it's something Dignitas was doing very well during their win streak in the spring split. Dignitas still holds the longest winning streak in North American LCS right now, back from the spring split, and they were playing like this. If they don't rush things, if they don't get caught out of position, they do have ways of being able to end by just accumulating massive leads.
In addition, their composition really works into their favor as well. They're going to be able to buy all the time for Ryze and for Kennen to power up. But they've got to be a bit careful, because the longer this game goes, the scarier that Shen and Twisted Fate will become.
And they are just brute forcing this turret a little bit. Look how quickly it's going down. For some reason, I felt like a Shen ult got burned there, but that was just Nocturne's spell shield getting knocked off. So that turret might go down in round 2.
We do see NK Inc. split pushing on the bottom lane. He's got that Stand United available, so if an engagement were to happen, this would be the time.
And it would be forced here, because they know the turret's going down. Unless Velocity concedes, they fight, and they concede.
Velocity just give this one up, then there's no call to engage. Absolutely nobody's nearby. Chris, that tanky frontline, he's on the Nexus, and Velocity, they just didn't do anything.
Dignitas can't believe it right now. They're saying, okay, we'll go and take another turret right now, specifically because NK Inc. just now went back instead of continuing to push that top turret, surely Velocity goes in on this wave if they can get any kind of catch.
Maple Street's the one that's far forward. The hook goes out, doesn't catch on anyone. Chris down to 50% HP. He's forced to back off as well. We'll stop off at that fountain, regenerate his HP, and come back to this mid lane.
Rinse and repeat. They're going to continue going down on this turret until Velocity tries to engage on them, or they just get the turret, barely dodging that hook. Great play by Cutie Pie.
Well played indeed. The quick draw, getting himself to safety. You can see the timers on the top of your screen. Dignitas realize that objectives are on their way up, and they decide to back off and position for those instead.
The last thing they want to do is actually get caught by one of those thresh hooks and then gift a Baron to Velocity. So they got enough done in that fight that they might actually go for more outside the turrets.
Destiny was up, and in actual fact, Crumbs counsels that with Paranoia. He dives himself in. Now we can see Kiwi Kid. Zonya's Hourglass is popped with a slicing Maelstrom. Chris, the tankiest member, is the first to fall. He's got so much armor, but not enough magic resistance. Cutie Pie's going to close out. That's a double kill for him. Turns over to NK Inc. Red buff is ticking away. He should have a quick drop in 2 seconds' time. He's going to carry on diving. Cutie Pie wants this one. Feint is up. Buckshot will be able to close that one out. Inhibitor turret goes down. They're onto the inhibitor, and this has to be the game for Dignitas.
That was a great fight for Dignitas right there. They systematically have destroyed Velocity's front line. They just mow through them in team fights. They didn't care about Velocity's tank line. Dignitas accumulated that huge lead, and they crushed them in that last team fight.
And there was such good play. The moment Destiny got used, Echo was looking for vision, looking what they're doing. Crumbs did not hesitate. He cancelled that vision. He put the darkness down, and he dove onto members of Velocity.
And I called it before the game. That haircut's going to turn Dignitas' season around. Skara did the right thing by getting that hair cut down a little bit, and they have to be happy about that. That was a very decisive win.
It's a reverse Super Saiyan. So he does the opposite of Goku. Instead of growing his hair with power, this time round he's shrinking it, and he went unkilled in that game. 4-0-6 on Rise.
He wasn't able to quite keep his pacing from the previous Velocity games. Velocity as a team had 7 kills, whereas Skara had 4, but the team performance was just solid from start to finish there.
Yeah, really, really good play and really good counterplay coming up against those, global champions of Twisted Fate and Shen, realizing, look, if we get the tower down, hey, Skara can just walk to lanes. He can just walk to do the globals.
We have to give a shout out to Crumbs there, who essentially was 1v2 as far as globals go, and he had the little baby global on Nocturne. That's the shortest one of all. You can barely even call that thing a global. It can hop a wall ward. It's like you may as well say Zach has a global at that point early on in the game, whereas NK Inc. and Echo can go from almost anywhere, and Crumbs counterplayed them almost perfectly the whole game.
It just really felt like Velocity, they didn't find the gear to get going. They were always reacting to Dignitas, and they simply didn't try to take the reins of that game.
No, they were always reacting. And it's a problem that a lot of young teams have, whereas Velocity can do a lot of good things in lane. The Maple Street versus Simon Cutie Pie lane was close. And a kind of a mismatch as well, based on champion picks. So there's definite skill there for Velocity. Echo had a few great plays on Twisted Fate, but cohesively as a team, it wasn't there.
All right, guys, we've got to take a short break, but when we return, Dignitas' Crumbs and Skara will join us to talk about their impressive win and his new haircut. Plus, we have an exclusive look at the new movie Pacific Rim that you won't want to miss. Week 5 of the NA LCS Summer Split. We'll be right back.